Am I the a-hole for being brutally honest with my infertile sister-in-law? My younger brother has been with wife about 7 years. 5 dating, 2 married. In the early years, my husband and I put in a lot of effort to get to know her as my brother lived with us and she would be over almost every day. It just never happened. Even when my husband would drive her an hour out of the city to see her parents, sometimes he could barely get 5 words out of her. So we figured she was shy or didn't like us or whatever and eventually just stopped pushing. When we had our first kid, it was the same deal. The one time she was around our kid for the holidays, she just said she didn't really do like kids and walked off, which is fine. They are our spawn. We don't expect others to like them. Lol. So we haven't pushed our kids on them. We still invited her and my brother to baby showers and birthdays and events. We have 2 kids now, but always made it clear they didn't have to come if it wasn't their thing, and they never did. My other brother and his husband are child-free but love being uncles. They come around a lot, they spend a lot of time with our kids. It's great and we are very lucky. Well, recently my younger brother and sister-in-law started trying and learned she is infertile. Obviously, I feel awful for them as I can't imagine how it would feel. I reached out to my brother about how he wanted us to deal with things going forward as I am expecting again and I didn't want to do anything or invite them to anything that would hurt even though they never come. Well, my brother said they wanted invites and would be coming to things now. I was a bit surprised. As he said, they did show up to my youngest's birthday party. It was a disaster. My sister-in-law would not stop nitpicking my husband and I and our kids. Our kids were too loud. I got the wrong food. They needed better manners. They needed better clothes. The kicker was when she kept trying to force my youngest to let her pick her up. She doesn't know her, so she didn't want her to pick her up. She went to my older brother's husband instead. My sister-in-law then declared since my existing kids were brats, she would just be the godmother and best aunt to my expected one and that they, brother and his husband, could have the others. I told her flat out that my kids aren't brats. They just don't know her and she doesn't get to play house with my new baby and ignore my other kids under any circumstances if she wants to be an involved family member. She argued with me, so I also told her she had plenty of opportunities to be in our and the kids' lives and I don't like how she's suddenly bursting in and being rude and controlling. Obviously, I understand her recent fertility news is part of the reason she's acting like this, but I don't think that means she can't be held responsible for her words and actions or act like she's entitled to my kids. Am I the a-hole? Top comments. Here's a comment from Third Try is the Charm. Not the a-hole. I thought this was going somewhere very different regarding infertility, but infertility in no way excuses her behavior here. Here's another comment. I agree. I am struggling with infertility and I would never even dream of acting this way. She's being rude and entitled, and I'd be worried about how she is going to treat the new baby if she thinks that the other kids are brats, when it sounds like they are just acting like kids. Here's another comment from Siko Nat. Yeah, I thought OP said something heartless when I saw the title. Nope, OP is definitely not the a-hole. They've given plenty of opportunities and even held their tongue when sister-in-law was being a rude biatch. Here's another comment from Eric Lovemonger. Agree. Crossing the line would be you can't have kids, so shut up. Telling her to stop antagonizing your kids and causing all sorts of problems. Then trying to blatantly favor one kid over another is what you should do. OP would be the a-hole if OP didn't cut this off and let the sister-in-law cause rifts in her family. Here's another comment from Twitchy Digits. Not the a-hole. I don't think you were being brutally honest. You were simply setting boundaries and calling her out on her behavior like an adult should do. Next story. Am I the a-hole for punishing my son for throwing away my husband's Bible? My husband, 37, and my son, 16, fight a lot and I tried to intervene, but my husband asked me to stay out of it while he works it out with my son. My husband came up with a bunch of nicknames to call my son. It all started when they fight, and in each fight or argument, my husband comes up with a new nickname to call my son till they fight again or till my son apologizes. Nicknames like dipstick, stone cold embarrassment, ass clown, imbecile, dweeb, etc. Since their latest fight, my husband has been calling my son ass clown. My son spoke up about how annoying it was and threatened my husband that if he doesn't stop, then he'll throw away something of his. Days ago, my son had friends over while I was out. Clearly, my husband called him ass clown in front of them, which caused a huge fight between them. My husband later called me panicking, saying my son took his Bible after their fight and refused to give it back. I went home and asked my son what happened. He told me my husband embarrassed him by calling him this nickname in front of his friends. I told him I'd talk to my husband later but asked him to give back the Bible. He said he no longer had it because he threw it out. I was in shock. I told him this was offensive to his stepdad and his religion, and he should have never resorted to this type of retaliation. He said he already warned my husband and that he could easily go get a replacement from the church. I got mad because this was a line he shouldn't have crossed. Throwing out stuff is never okay. I punished him and took his allowance for the rest of the month. My son argued about how unfair this was, and that my husband got away though he started it. I refused to argue because he was just lashing out and not ready to listen. I exited the room, then spoke to my husband about it. My husband promised this will all stop if my son gets properly punished for what he did, and I let him know he got his punishment. But my son wasn't having it. He called his grandmother, my ex-mother-in-law, and she tried to come to my home and yell at me, but I refused to let her in. She texted that I was being unfair and just wrong for punishing my son. I replied that he did something worth punishing, and no matter who started what, throwing away stuff isn't okay. She kept calling, but that was it for me. Edit. I just want to point out that 1. I never agreed to my husband's way of trying to work his issues out with my son, but I got convinced that they both need time and space to be able to get these issues resolved without me intervening. 2. The punishment was solely because he threw the book out. I still am not okay with his whole nickname calling, despite my husband saying that it's some form of teasing. I'm 100% on my son's side in this. 3. I did try to find solutions to these problems that kept occurring, and even arranged for family therapy, but neither one of them agreed to go. My husband offered to take my son to church, but my son refused. 4. Being the breadwinner and working long hours, I'm always tired and struggling to keep everyone satisfied and happy. It's too much pressure to be keeping an eye on every little things in the house, and no one is willing to sit down for a heart-to-heart conversation. Top comments. Here's a comment from Rose Gold Luna. You're the a-hole, you're the a-hole, you're the a-hole. Why would you take your husband's side over your son's in the first place? Secondly, your husband sounds like a toxic and abusive adult. Lastly, you're turning a blind eye to abuse. You're allowing for trauma to take place in your son's life. I'm so glad his grandmother is standing up for him. Sadly, sounds like she's the only one in his corner. Another comment from Bellatrix Dog. You're the a-hole. OP is going to be on here in less than 24 months. Ask why doesn't my son want anything to do with me? He moved out on his 18th birthday and has ghosted me since. What did I do so wrong? OP, the answer to your future why it's because you have let your husband bully and belittle him for years. That's why he will not be talking to you. Here's another comment from Matt J. Farrell. You're the a-hole. I'm more thinking it will be my husband and my son got into a physical fight and were both arrested. Am I the a-hole for only bailing out my husband since he says my son needs to learn his lesson by staying in jail?